course. But before we move on, I would like to ask you this question. Do I actually need statistics in my research as English education student department? Because kualitatif, quantitative data analysis, ayo.
My group was qualitative, sir.
Yours was quali. What about the quanti one? Dulu lupa Pak, sekarang lupa lagi. Gak ada yang ngaku, nanti tidak ditanya-tanya. That's okay. I mean, to forget is human. Okay. Now, let me give you some examples of how statistics is used in ELT. Okay. Now, if we have a look at this term, attitude toward reading. Okay, I'm pretty sure that you are familiar with this one. Reading. Sikap membaca. Sikap membaca is our ranah, right? So it is actually perkawinan antara ELT and educational psychology. Okay, so we do have reading attitudes. So here in 1990, 1995, 2001, 2012, and 2013, Makina conducted this reading attitudes study. Okay, so in this reading attitude study, Makina surveyed or conducted a survey to investigate students' reading attitude. In 1990, it was printed version only. I mean, reading of print. And then in 2012, he and his colleagues developed the survey into more complex one by incorporating the the digital platforms. Okay, jadi dikembangkan. Hold on, wait a minute. Hold on, give me a second. All right, so see, you can see that although we are talking about reading, we can still have numbers in reading, like whether male and female students reading attitudes differ significantly or not, whether students in their first year have got different reading attitudes compared to their senior countermates and so on. See, this is quite, I mean, complex actually, but we are not going to make it complex. We are going to make it simple. Okay, so this is just the first example. Another example is this one. Reading habits and attitudes in the digital age. It was conducted in Malaysia, and it's similar. It was a similar study to the one that we had just now. So kebiasaan dan habit itu kebiasaan ya. Kalau attitude itu sikap, kebiasaan dan sikap membaca. Whether students in the digital age read differently or the same. Whether students in the first year or freshmen have got similar reading habits and attitudes compared to sophomore and senior students misalnya. It was conducted in Malaysia. Ini kalau ini gender and academic program, whether students in English education department have got better habits and attitudes in reading in the digital age compared to students in LT atau PEP atau mungkin bahasa dan seni. So it's just like finding the difference, and we will use uji beda here. Another example is this one: listening comprehension and anxiety. So this study was conducted in Saudi Arabia, if I'm not mistaken, and the researcher conducted the study to investigate how the students' listening comprehension and anxiety are connected. Okay, well, theoretically, if you have higher anxiety in a particular thing, excuse me, anxiety in a particular field, then you are going to have lower performance in that field. Okay. Now, so these are just small examples of how statistics are used in ELT context or in language teaching context. I'm pretty sure that you can find many other examples of how statistics is playing its role in quantitative research, especially in ELT context. Mostly, they are talking about performance and educational psychology dimensions or educational psychology constructs or factors. Okay, now move on with the next slide. So, what is that? Okay, if you have a look at the term, the definition, this I'm pretty sure that you remember about data collection, qualitative and quantitative data collection. When we are talking about qualitative data collection, we are talking about qualitative data collection. We are talking about narrative data atau data yang berupa narasi. But when we are talking about quantitative data collection, we are talking about numbers, numerical, or sometimes we are also talking about qualitative data which can be transformed into quantitative data. Misalnya, jurusannya apa? Pendidikan bahasa Inggris. Prodinya apa? Pendidikan bahasa Inggris. You can still quantify it into numbers. Nanti kita akan coba lihat. So once you collect the quantitative or numerical data, then you go through a process which is called quantitative data analysis or statistics. Why do we need to do this statistics? Okay, so we need to get new information from our data. So basically, statistics is just a tool to create better or new understanding from a set of data that we collect in quantitative data analysis. Okay, now I'll show you the the reference that we are going to mainly use in our course. I have a problem with my PDF. Why doesn't it open? Fix this thing first. Oh. All right. So I'll share you my screen on the reference data that I use. Should I use every single statistical analysis that I know or that can be found in any book in my study? We are going to answer it here. Let's say you have this set of data. Pada saat pengumpulan data, mengumpulkan datanya mempeng, banyak sekali yang dikumpulkan. Mempeng, well, I don't know how to say it in bahasa Inggris. Mampang. Mampang is working very hard to collect your data. So here you get the data on your students' reading motivation, and then reading score, reading enjoyment, self-efficacy, feeling of insecure, sensation seeking, need for cognition, and autonomy. And then the question is, Pak, analisisnya kalau datanya sebanyak itu, analisisnya apa misalnya? Kenapa nggak disajikan data seperti itu saja dilaporkan? Misalnya, you want to report student 1, 2, 3, and so on. Kemudian dilaporkan, the reading motivation of student number 1 is 58, his or her reading score is 55, reading enjoyment is 86, self-efficacy is 47, feeling of insecure is 50, nah itu kalau sampai pojok di sini nanti dehidrasi ngomongnya kalau presentasi. Atau kalau nulis ya capek banget, because it's really tiring. So what you need to do is to make a summary or do something to this set of data to apa istilahnya summarize it. So data analisis apa yang perlu saya lakukan, Pak? Misalnya, first you want to do descriptive analysis. Nah, descriptive analysis berarti, oh rata-rata reading motivation siswa saya berapa ya? Rata-rata reading score-nya berapa ya? Dari 100 data bisa dapat satu angka nanti untuk dilaporkan dalam report. Oh rata-ratanya 76.9 for instance. This means that it is above the KK. So, kemudian itu deskriptif ya. Atau range-nya mulai skor terendah sampai skor tertingginya berapa, for instance. Okay, and then for this descriptive data analysis, what about Uji data? You can also choose some Uji data. Okay, the Uji beta can be conducted on misalnya reading score-nya mahasiswa itu lebih tinggi dibandingkan mahasiswi atau tidak. Reading enjoyment-nya mahasiswi lebih tinggi atau lebih rendah dibandingkan mahasiswa. Reading feeling of insecure-nya mahasiswa berkacamata dibandingkan mahasiswa tidak berkacamata itu sama atau tidak. So it's just like uji beta. The next one is uji korelasi, for instance. Reading motivation. Is my students' reading motivation connected to their sensation seeking or need for cognition or autonomy and so on? So it's like many types of analysis that you can use in your study really depends on some points. Now I will stop here and I'll give you about 10 minutes to seek for some information related to kira-kira apa saja yang mempengaruhi atau menjadi pertimbangan untuk analisis data dalam studi Mas dan Pak. I'll give you 10 minutes to think about or to find some information related to what consideration you should take in the data analysis. Okay, now saya tinggal dulu 10 menit. I will be back in 10 minutes. Berarti jam 8 lebih. Enjoy searching.
Guys, nyari apaan guys?
we are trying to answer this question, what analysis should I use? Then you need to consider these 2 points. The first one is your purpose of the study. Is your study descriptive only? Kalau deskriptif ya, oke, kelas ini terdiri dari 29 mahasiswa yang masuk, 50% laki-laki, 50% perempuan. 20% is from Jogja and 80% is not from Jogja. Okay, 28 students are from 2021, one student is from 2020 misalnya. So it's descriptive. You have a set of like group and you describe it. You are describing their characters. You are not trying to predict or correlate or distinguish anything, simply describing. 35% of the students are wearing glasses and 65% are not wearing glasses. Misalnya itu kan descriptive only. Okay, what about the second one, correlational analysis? If we are talking about correlational analysis, we are talking about simple correlation or R, or multiple regression, linear regression or multiple regression. When we are talking about simple correlation, you simply have a look at korelasi. Misalnya, adakah korelasi antara nonton drakor dengan IPK misalnya. Nonton drakornya semakin banyak, IPK-nya semakin tinggi misalnya. Atau sebaliknya misalnya. Okay, that is correlation, simple correlation. For multiple regression, you are trying to predict, misalnya, apakah lama studi mahasiswa bisa diprediksi dari nilai mereka di kelas data analisis dan metode penelitian, misalnya. Why do we have this kind of assumption? It is because kalau mau neliti, maka harus kuat di data analisis dan metode penelitiannya. Okay, so then you get this theory, then you bring it on to do the analysis. That is correlational. What I mean is the regression or multiple linear and multiple regression. So you are predicting something from other thing. You are predicting a dependent variable from some independent variable. Okay, and then the next one is experimental. So if we are talking about experimental studies, we are talking about apakah my treatment affects the student's performance or not. Nah, itu masuknya experimental studies. Okay? Yeah. So, and that is the first consideration. So you'll have to consider, nanti studi saya ini mau deskriptif, eksperimental, uji beda, atau correlational. Kalau correlational, maka yang saya butuhkan datanya seperti ini. Kalau experimental, yang saya butuhkan datanya seperti itu. Okay, that is the first consideration, purpose of the study. And then the next consideration is type of your data. Some types of data can only be used in some particular data analysis, but other types of data might be used in any kind of data analysis. Misalnya, you do have scores. Okay, if you have scores, then you can use scores in any kind of data analysis. Descriptive bisa, correlational bisa, experimental bisa. Score itu yang misalnya reading scores, listening scores, and so on. But if you do have categorical score, misalnya laki-laki di kode 1, perempuan di kode 2. Then you can only use this type of analysis in some particular this type of data in some particular data analysis. Tidak bisa dikorelasikan. Misalnya korelasi antara jenis kelamin dengan lama studi, tidak bisa. Nanti terjadi huru-hara, perang dunia keempat. Misalnya di situ kesimpulannya bahwa laki-laki studinya lebih pendek dari wanita. Wow, demo itu emansipasi wanita. Dosennya kampus bisa dibakar itu nanti. Ya kan? Ya karena apa namanya? Nah, ini agak menarik juga Mas dan Mbak. Ada agak serius ya kemarin kasus, tapi off the record saja, kasus di UNY terkait dengan kekerasan seksual. Mungkin Mas dan Mbak sudah baca. Tapi yang menjadi masalah adalah reporternya itu ternyata kurang sahih. Apa yang jadi masalah di situ? Namanya masih nama samaran, datanya ndak ada. Saya bisa saja loh bilang kayak gini, wah, Dimiare itu kemarin korupsi 50 miliar loh. Dimiar, mahasiswa saya dari UNY. Tapi saya nggak punya data. Saya nulis itu di media. Ya, ada orang yang baca tertarik, wah di Myanmar mahasiswa kok bisa 50 miliar, tapi datanya tidak ada. Bahkan orangnya itu namanya masih nama samaran. Kalau boleh dilihat, itu kayak dulu di Jogja itu ada koran Merapi yang pekerjaannya itu, koran Merapi atau koran yang aneh-aneh yang kerjaannya itu, misalnya misteri di gunung, misteri di balik rumah hantu, dan lain. Isinya seperti itu. Namanya nama samaran, reporternya samaran, tempatnya samaran, ya isinya juga samaran. One of the biggest question, one of the biggest concern is yang salah satu permasalahannya adalah victimnya, korbannya itu tidak melakukan laporan resmi. So we cannot track it, we cannot trace it. Nggak tahu ini informasi benar atau enggak. Tapi yang jadi masalah, reporternya terlanjur melaporkan di media dan itu booming. Coba saja ada data yang resmi ada enggak? Enggak ada itu. Makanya kalau ada data resmi pasti LSM lari ke kampus. Dan sampai sekarang tidak ada. Tapi kan sudah terlanjur booming. That's the biggest question. If we do have such a data, then we can support our findings. Tapi kalau tidak punya data, kita bikin laporan, ya laporannya jadi acak-adul. Kok sampai situ tadi ya, saya juga bingung. Anyway, sorry. Nah, ya type of data. Nah, ini misalnya uji beda sampai kampusnya dibakar itu tadi ya. So, some like categorical data can only be used like uji beda misalnya. Itu bisa. Laki-laki dan perempuan lama studinya lebih lama siapa dari data yang kita miliki, for instance. Tidak boleh berdasar asumsi saja. Deskriptif juga bisa. Berapa persen laki-laki, berapa persen perempuan di kelas kita, itu bisa diwujudkan dalam apa namanya uji deskriptif. Okay. Yeah. Now, if you do have any questions, Mas dan Mbak, I'll stop here and silahkan kalau ada yang ingin ditanyakan, diklarifikasi terlebih dahulu. Kalau enggak, we'll go ahead with the next slide. Okay, good students have no questions. I'll go ahead with the next slide then. Now, we already had this one, statistic. What statistic is? It's a set of tools that are commonly used to analyze quantitative or numerical data to get better understanding, new understanding about our set of data. And the main consideration in statistics are our objective of the study or purpose of the study and type of data that we have. Okay, now these are some different types of analysis that you can find, but we are not going to talk about them all. I mean, kita nanti pilih-pilih saja yang kira-kira agak menarik itu ya. Nah, misalnya ada t-test, kemudian ada ANOVA, ini untuk uji beda. Ternyata di sini nanti masih ada uji korelasi and so on. Okay, these are just some examples of the data. Don't worry, we are not going to talk them all. I mean, misalnya Wilcoxon ya nggak usah, Wells juga nggak usah, repeated measure, Friedman test nggak usah, Wilcoxon juga mungkin tidak perlu. Some of them only. Okay, now we'll go ahead with the next slide. Okay, now when we are talking about statistics, you will be familiar with these key statistical concepts. For instance, population and sample. What is populasi and what is sample? So basically, when we are talking about population, it is the group of all items of interest. Misalnya, Mas dan Mbak mau melihat populasinya itu seluruh mahasiswa pendidikan bahasa Inggris S2 di Yogyakarta. Then you are likely to collect the data from UNY, Sanata Dharma, UII mungkin kalau ada, UMY kalau ada, Sarjana Wiyata kalau ada, UAD, and some other universities which have Master of English Education. Datanya dikumpulkan dari mereka karena populasinya itu. The thing is, it is pretty difficult if we have a huge size of population. Misalnya populasinya dari Indonesia, susah masa ya dari ujung timur sampai ujung barat penelitiannya kesulitan. That's why we need sample. But make sure that your sample represents the whole population. How do we make sure that our sample represents the whole population? Misalnya, if we start with the concept of normal distribution, okay, if we start with this normal distribution, you may learn that some students are really excellent, some students are in the middle, and some students are in the lower end of the curve. This means that populasi itu isinya ya ada yang sangat pintar, ada yang sedang, ada yang kurang pintar. Nah, sampelnya juga harus ada yang sangat pintar, sedang, dan kurang pintar misalnya. Atau kurang sedang misalnya itu tadi, kurang dari sedang. That's why in collecting the sample, you have to make sure that your sample really represents the whole population. Nah, kalau universitas gimana Pak caranya? Yes, you can find misalnya ada yang akreditasi A dianggap yang Pak pinter, akreditasi B dianggap yang sedang, akreditasi C dianggap yang di bawahnya sedang misalnya. So you'll have to make sure that your sample represents the whole population. Okay? Ya, ini hal yang penting nanti. Jangan sampai, nanti yang diambil yang pinter semua. Ya enggak bisa. Misalnya diambil dari kelas B ini semua, ya enggak bisa. Karena kelas B misalnya pinter semua. Lah kelas A dan C gimana? Enggak terwakili, toh. Misalnya diambil dari kelas C yang kurang, misalnya kelas Z yang kurang pinter semua. Nah, nanti yang pinter dan sedang tidak terwakili, dong. So, you have to make sure that before you collect your data, you consider this thing. Make sure that your sample does represent the whole population. Maka kalau ada beberapa syarat, salah satunya random selection of your sample. Disebar saja, kelas A, B, C dikasih semua, yang balik itu yang digunakan. You do provide opportunities for everyone to get involved. Tapi yang balik hanya ini, ya enggak masalah. Kan ada juga random simple random sampling. Ada stratified random sampling, diambil dari kelas A sedikit, kelas B sedikit, kelas C sedikit. Kemudian ada cluster random sampling, diambil dari yang Jogja, Tengah, Barat, dan Timur misalnya. And some other random sampling techniques. Okay, so excuse me. When you are collecting your data using random sampling, then it is likely that your examiner will not ask you, ini datanya representatif atau enggak, karena random, then we can say that asumsinya itu representing the whole population. Because we cannot really 100% be sure that datanya representatif dari set populasi, ya sulit. Nah, kalau random sampling, harapannya sudah. Okay, now saya kok suka coret-coret layar ya. Hobi coret-coret layar ini kayaknya. I'll skip this one. Okay. Now we are going to talk about this one. Two types of statistics. The first one is descriptive statistics. We had this one already. So when we are talking about descriptive statistics, we are simply summarizing or organizing and presenting our data in a more convenient and informative way of data presentation. Misalnya data yang banyak tadi, yang di depan tadi loh, yang ini, kalau dipresentasikan kayak tadi, student number 1, the reading motivation is 58, student number 2, 81, student number 3, 8, student number 4, 21, and so on, sampai yang ujung sini nanti dehidrasi tadi saya sampaikan. But we need to find a better way of presenting this set of data. Caranya ya apa? Misalnya tadi deskriptif. statistics. So you are summarizing and organizing the information. Oh, rata-ratanya segini, Pak. Nilai tertingginya segini, Pak. Nilai terendahnya segini, Pak. So you get a better understanding of your data in using simple ways. Nah, one thing that you need to remember is that kalau nanti data dari descriptive statistics itu disajikan dalam bentuk tabel, kindly make sure that you are not mentioning, re-mentioning, rewriting, restating whatever is mentioned in your table. Maksudnya apa toh Pak Nur? Mana PPT saya? Ada itu. Nah ini yang diperlukan. Jangan sampai diulang-ulang. Misalnya presentase laki-laki berapa, presentase perempuan berapa, itu boring. And it is not a good way of presenting your data. Okay? Now, population, kita sebutnya this group of data, then you can only describe this group of data. You cannot generalize it to other groups of data. Misalnya ini kelas B, deskripsinya adalah 70% laki-laki, 30% perempuan. Saya tidak bisa membuat kesimpulan, oh karena kelas B 70% laki-laki, aduh terlalu bersemangat, kebalik ini. Kebalik. Excuse me. Oh my goodness. Terlalu bersemangat sampai tersedak-sedak. Oh my goodness, sorry. Okay, so misalnya kelas B ini 70% of the students are female and 30% of the students are male, then I cannot generalize it to other classes. Karena kelas B presentasenya 7:3, maka kelas A juga 7:3, kelas C juga 7:3. No way, you cannot make this generalization. We call it overgeneralization. Generalisasinya terlalu. Nah, how can we make generalization? We can do it through statistical inference or statistical analysis. So, so when we have like this set of data, tadi I gave you an example. Saya mau mengumpulkan data tentang autonomy of reading or reading autonomy dari semua mahasiswa master yang ada di DIY misalnya. Karena mahasiswanya ribuan, it is impossible for you to reach them all. That's why you get a small sample. Satu dari UNY, satu dari Sanata Dharma, satu grup ya bukan satu ya, satu grup dari misalnya Universitas X yang ada di entah berantah atau misalnya satu kelompok dari beberapa mahasiswa dari akreditasi A, berapa mahasiswa dari akreditasi B, berapa mahasiswa dari akreditasi C misalnya. And then from the small group of sample, you analyze the data, dilihat, oh ternyata autonomy of reading autonominya mahasiswa semester 1 lebih tinggi dibanding reading autonominya mahasiswa semester atas karena mereka sudah PY atau sudah laku, sudah payu. That's why you can make a generalization bahwa seluruh mahasiswa PPI S2 itu reading autonominya lebih tinggi ketika mereka berada di semester bawah dibanding ketika mereka berada di semester atas. This kind of generalization can only be made if you have this representative group of sample. Maka dari itu, your choice of selecting the sample determines your conclusion. If you select the wrong sample, then you are going to make the wrong conclusion. But if you have the correct sampling, then you are going to have the correct conclusion. Saya tak berhenti di sini dulu, ini kok menggah-menggah ini. Now, assign numbers to give it a code. Misalnya Mas Danwa mengumpulkan data tentang laki-laki dan perempuan. Male and female students. Instead of using male and female, you code them into 1 and 2. But remember that you cannot run any statistical or mathematical analysis to these numbers, to this data. Bisanya hanya frekuensi dan persentase. Nggak bisa ditambahkan, nggak bisa dikurangi. Oh, perempuan dikurangi laki-laki artinya laki-laki misalnya. Nggak bisa. Karena 2 dikurangi 1 sama dengan 1 kan. Nggak berarti terus perempuan dikurangi laki-laki sama dengan laki-laki. Nggak bisa. Laki-laki tambah perempuan sama dengan 3. 3 artinya apa, Pak? Bingung, enggak bisa. Oke. Okay. Laki-laki tambah laki-laki sama dengan 1 tambah 1 sama dengan 2, maka laki-laki tambah laki-laki sama dengan perempuan. It doesn't work that way. Okay, so remember, nominal data or categorical data are simply used to categorize your data. 1 itu untuk semester 1, 2 untuk semester 2, 3 untuk semester 3, and so on. 1 untuk yang dari luar Jogja, 2 untuk yang dari dalam Jogja, for instance. So you simply assign code to help you simplify your data. Okay, now the next type of data, what you can do with this type of data itu hanya seperti ini. Tadi sudah saya sampaikan ya, frequency or what is it? Frequency or percentage. Hanya seperti ini saja, nggak bisa ditambahkan dan dikurangi. Okay, and then the next type of data is interval data. Okay, real numbers. Okay, nah di sini biasanya interval data is you normally find interval data itu biasanya kalau yang bentuknya suhu. Nah, kemudian kalau kita lihat dari definisinya kan interval data uses interval 1 sampai berapa, tapi tidak selalu bermakna seperti itu ya. Okay, arithmetic operations can be performed in this type of data, but we rarely use this type of data in our statistical analysis. Jarang digunakan karena nanti interval data itu tidak banyak digunakan karena sudah diganti dengan tipe data terakhir yaitu ratio atau scores. Misalnya height, price itu bisa dianggap sebagai scores nantinya. Daripada yang misalnya skor 1 sampai 5, 6 sampai 7, 8 sampai 9 itu kan interval data. Hold on. Karena tadi saya minta berhenti sampai jam 9. Nah, next ordinal data. Normally you find ordinal data in surveys, close-ended survey. Strongly disagree, agree, strongly agree. Okay, this is examples of these are examples of ordinal data. Excellent, poor, fair, very good misalnya. Itu kan ada. I still remember that Prof. Jamari Almarhum reminded me about how the number of options that you can have in your survey. Sebisa mungkin jangan ambil yang 5 opsi. Karena ada tendensi nanti ngumpul di tengah-tengah. That's why 4 opsi atau 6 opsi is much better. Okay. Now, the last type of data itu nanti ada di sini. Ratio. Well, when we are talking about ratio, we normally talk about scores. Any scores that you have, any scores that you collect from test, any scores that you collect from misalnya survey, itu pun bisa dijadikan score. Namanya nanti factor scores. Kalau dari survei menjadi factor scores. Dijumlahkan, atau dikuadratkan, atau standardize, itu namanya jadi factor scores. Okay? Now, I'll give you